Okay, so today I'm going to present a little bit of what I have done in the CROBORA project, and particularly would spend some time presenting the visual platform, which is eponym from the name of the project. So this presentation was mainly prepared by Aline and myself, but in fact there are a lot of people that are contributing to this project. As you can see, you had a lot of partners in this project, including INA, High Italia, for example, Mediaset, which I'm going to explain a little bit later. They are the main sources of the videos that you are using in the CROBORA platform. So what is this project about? So it's an ANR project. So it's led by the Sic.Lab. So it's much more, in the beginning, the research questions, as you shall see, are more related to the media communication than on computer science, but they needed help with the development of tools for understanding media and the circulation of stock shots. I'm going to explain to you what it is in a minute. And then this is why I was invited to participate in this project with Aline, and you have been working since 21. Okay. So the team leader is Matteo Treliani. I don't know if you have heard about him, and most of the conceptual work behind the classification of the video in the CROBORA project was done by Ximing Shen, which is a PhD student of Matteo. And maybe some of you have heard about Jean-Marie Dormoy, who was recruited in the project as engineering and developed the current version that we are going to present today. Okay. Other partners are Dario Campagno and Ediki Girkosian. Maybe you have heard about him. He's working on semantic web, University of Lille. Okay, so the main goal of the project is to study the circulation of stock shots in media space, and in particularly on news, or JT in JT in French. So we're not looking for any kind of media, but we are particularly concerned by this kind of TV news. And stock shots are these kind of images of the past, archival videos that they are using for illustrating something they wanted to present in the day. Okay. Maybe we are not aware about this, but there is an impressive reuse of these images in the construction of GTs in France and in Europe. In a study that was done in 2012, they found that at least 1/5 of the images used in news are from archival. Okay, this is the minimum, just in France 2 and MCs. But when you look for media providers like Mediaset, which is a huge media provider in Europe, it starts with 60% of the images are stock shots. So this is very massive use on that images. And one of the interesting things that is also a research question in the project is that it happens that some stock shots are the only memory of the past that we have, because the original videos are lost. So you have snippets, we have parts of the original videos that are used in the current news, but the whole original media is lost. So you can, maybe it is one of the goals of the project, is try to reconstruct the original video by collecting these small parts and trying to make a whole piece again. Okay, so just to give you an illustration of this, that if you have original sequence on the top, and then you can see in the bottom you have a different news reusing different parts. So and this may create the problem of the ghost images or ghost videos, as the original video disappears, is lost, which is often the case for old videos, and you want to have parts. But there are also another problem, is that in which context these images are used. You have no guarantee that the parts that are used from this media are used for the same purpose and in the same context of use. So the research questions are formulating this way: how stock shots used over time, which stock shots are used to support narratives and which kind of narratives are used. And there is a strong research question in humanities to see how these images are used to create a visual and collective memory to tell stories and narratives. This is very interesting. And also how to recreate ghost data from stock shots. This is exactly the problem I already mentioned. Okay, so these research questions are formulated in 2 papers that you published last year. So in case you wanted to see more details, these are there. So for the first research question, how are stock shots used over time? Here we are presenting already some of the data collected in the project. This is still not the tool, but you can see, for example, an evolution over time. So there are periods of time you use more than not. And typically it's because you don't have fresh news. So typically when the journalists and the media producers are running off of fresh news, they tend to use more archival images, which makes sense. Yeah, and this is something that can be observed. But also, one thing that is interesting is not the frequency of use that is interesting, but what has been used when you address certain topics. So this is some of the stock shot images that you collected in CROBORA project. Is that when you look for what's the image of European Union, if you look for what is European Union in this data set, these are typical images that came out. So this is one of the goals, is that how do you have this visual identity of topics in the data set, okay? And of course, how they evolve over time. Typically, other very interesting questions are related to that. Which stock shots are used to support kind of a narrative? So every time I talk about Second World War, this is probably one of the most famous images you have seen. In all videos, in all news, you always have this kind of a bombing, aerial bombing of the cities, and this is typical of the narratives used to talk about the Second World War. So this is a kind of typical example. But then there are more complicated cases, like this one. Is that this is one collection or a compilation of images that are used to characterize. So you remember in the news, every end of the year, you have this kind of a compilation of the main topics of the year. So basically what they do, they are using stock images for creating that kind of narrative. And this kind of narrative is propagated through different years. So in 10 years, when you wanted to know how was 10 years ago, you probably are looking for this kind of a compilation. So this is very, very important to see which kind of stock shots are used for creating these kind of images. And this has a huge impact over time in the creation of the collective memory. So this is an example from 2015, which was called Année de la Rupture. And then typically they put around topics that were prominent in that sense. So you can obviously, without discussing much, but the problems related with migration, raising of the right-wing extremes, and also the terrorist attacks. Okay, so this is a reuse altogether. Just to provide an illustration of the ghost data, because I already mentioned, but I wanted to provide you a clear and concrete example of that. In a very old video sequence, which is the Treaty of Rome in 1957, which is the original one was apparently lost. And you have a lot of records because there are a lot of cameras around these times taking images from different angles, from different journalists, but you lost the track of which image was taken by which people. So you have different images, we have different sequences, but you cannot say which is doing what. So when you look for the sequence of images, you can see this is all the images that are treated for from the Treaty of Rome. Some of them are quite similar, or they are similar enough to say, okay, this is part of that or that sequencing, but the others you are not quite sure. So there is if you wanted to reconstruct it, for example, the original video sequences, there are a lot of work to do for trying to combine these individual stock shots that were taken. we're a little bit far away from doing that currently in the project. We have been trying to use some AI tools for image recognition using Snoop. I don't know if someone have been using these kind of tools with Ina, but it's very time consuming, very, very complicated. I never was able to put a Ruji sequence in place for that. You are trying to find different alternatives. So this is still an open research question for the future. Maybe we'll complete that at some point. Okay, so what do we have as data set, just to be clear? So we collected a set of images, archival images from, our main sources are INA, HI, WebFR, and also Mediaset. Mediaset came a little bit later, that's why nothing is still in the list. So the list here is a little bit incomplete because you are updating progressively. So this is not the final list in the data. It doesn't matter much because the idea is to be incremental anyway. But this is provide a good overview of what you already have. So we collected all the news, the GT, from 2001 to 2021, basically. So what is interesting is that the GTs are not segmented. So I don't know if you have seen how this is made, but there is you have the full video recording, but you don't have the subjects segmented one by one. So you have segmented all the subjects. So that's why you have the subjects there. And from every subject, every time you dissociated the fresh images from stock shots. And then for illustrating the stock shots, you selected some snapshots that illustrated the subject and are illustrative as well, the stock shot that has been used. Okay, so we have a lot of, a huge amount of data. And we started with a complete video news sequence, no segmentation, as I said, and the metadata. So you have access to the metadata, but the metadata is not for the subjects. It is metadata for the full news. Okay, and then this is the work done by mainly by Matteo, Ximin, and other people from the Sic.Lab. So they recruited people just for manually curating and processing the data. So they spend a lot of time. It's impressive, really, really impressive. The amount of time they have spent just for segmenting all the subjects. And for every subject, they separated snapshots, which they call it imagettes. Don't know if it's really French, but this is how we call in the project, imagettes, which are snapshots of these sequences of a video, okay? And every imagette was tagged. So the tagging was a descriptive label put by the experts or by those trainees. So you have a lot of interns that were trained for doing that. And additional to that, we classify all the images. So this is one of the proposals of Ximin in her thesis, is that all the images were classified if they are reporting a celebrity, an event, an illustration, or reporting a place. So these are standard way of classifying things. And basically, at the end, what you have is a table where you have things like that. So you have the sequence of images, and you have the tags for personality, multiple tags, eventually multiple tags for personality. In the first 2 lines, 3 lines, you have no personality because there's no personality in the image. But you have events, and you have a place, and you have illustration. And just to clarify, for illustrations, that a lot of stock images are used for talking about things like, for example, cell phone. If you wanted to talk about cell phone, how was the cell phone 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you know? So they have images like that. In Mediaset, they call it these les précieuses, precious images, because they are extremely used. Over 90%, as far as I remember, of the images reused from Mediaset are in this classification of the precious images, because they are very often used. And this frequency of use is what helps to create this collective memory in collective images of things. So the choice of the images are very, very important for that. Okay, so what you created was, to start, a visual index. So from this CSV file, All the categories, you can see the icons on the left, celebrity, event, illustration, and location with significant colors that help us to see that. And they are associated with the images, the imagette that was collected. So here you have a sample of archival images. And then every time you selected an image, you know what the tags that have been put on. And then from that, you can start work. Okay, so this is our initial data set over there. So you can see on the right here, we can see that, for example, this imagette here is associated to a particular GT. So you can trace back the origin of the image, the dates, the topics, and so on. And you can see how many different topics are associated and tagged over there. Okay, so you have a rich data set to work, and the problem is that how we can explore these contents and make sense of this visual image. And for that, you created the CROBORA platform. So this platform features a web-based platform. It's not feasting, it's features as a tip. I'm sorry for that. So you have a guided visual query. So I'm not talking much about this in the rest of the presentation, but this is something that may be of interest for the future, because this is a way of optimizing the way you can create the queries using the data set. So basically, you can select the data set categories, clustering method, keywords, and you put a lot of guiding tools, like, for example, autocomplete based on clusters that has been identified and created, and so on. And also in the selection of the words, you can do the starting point for doing some kind of provenance analysis at the end. So this is something for future work, but you have the basis in the platform already. Then you have integrated multiple exploratory views, annotations and bookmarks, data extraction, and something that you have to discuss later is about what is, we call it clustering method. Very debatable. Views for looking data. So you have a file explorer, gallery, visualization techniques. I'm just going to show you very quickly this. Okay, so this is the platform. So basically, you can select it here the data sets you are using, the categories using in the query. So you can select particular categories, of course, and you can do the queries using the categories or using the keywords in the title. So you cannot use both, but you can use some of them. So you can choose the clustering method and the keywords. And then these are the different views. So here we have the exploratory view. So I put like something like Angela Merkel here. Then you can move. So this is the gallery view. So this is the file recording view. And you can see some details about the images and the tags that have been associated with this particular video recording. We can go for the original images, the original data set provided by institution. So this is the metadata, and this is details about the categories. And also you have, of course, the original video where the images were taken. The other views are the gallery. So this is, in this view, you start with the images that are representative, where you can apply filters, of course. Then you have tree maps, moving RVs. You have
I'm going too fast.
Too fast. Okay,
so back.
Tree maps, moving. RVs. Yeah, I mean, it takes time. I'm going to show more examples with that afterwards, and the gallery. Okay, going back to the presentation, because it was important. So I'm using these slides here in order to be more effective, but of course everything is supposed to work, and then you can try the platform if you want with the link. So so here we have an example for if you put the label Nobel for Nobel Prize, for example, you can see the results over there. This is for the file explorer, and every time you open, you can see the images that are associated with a particular subject, and then from the subject you can see what are the keywords. So it's a way of understanding what their keywords are used. We can also employ Boolean operators like EUR and AND, of course, for combining multiple keywords here. And this is some of the features I'm going to show you after. But basically, you can use multiple keywords and then do some. Maybe it's better if I can show you now. So if I put here File Explorer, let's say, for example, and I put Hollande, François Hollande, okay, so I can use, or I have both. I can apply the and here I have when all those come together. And then you can simply, have multiple selections, and then you can use also this way of selecting in and selecting the keywords that they are used. So we found that it was very useful, especially when to see combinations. For example, if you have Angela Merkel talk about Matteo Renzi, for example, I wanted to see if I have the three altogether. Of course, you have a subset. We have seen Angela Merkel and François Hollande together, but this time I just wanted to see if Angela Merkel and Matteo Renzi, so I can keep my keywords and then do some fast selection in the results just by using this mechanism. So we found this was very useful for selecting the keywords in the queries. So I already mentioned this is the data set with the catalog in the images, and of course the original video. So one of the first things that I wanted to stress here is that the added value of having this kind of platform with respect to the best tools we have available for the same kind of data, which is the INATech, which is the tool used by provided by INA. So if you go to INA, and this is a little bit tricky, is because you need a special permission to access the records, and the only thing that you have is that access to the catalog of the videos, and then you have the access to the video, and that's all. So it's still very old-fashioned way, like old libraries for accessing the media. This is the best tool available so far, and then you can immediately see the difference of having this kind of tool. So this is why you develop that. We can have a visual support, images question, and so on. Okay. There are other things that are interesting. When using the data set, we're running some algorithms. So this is not something that is exploited directly on CROBORA, but can demonstrate the way you can exploit the CROBORA to understanding correlation. So some of the partners in the project have been analyzing the correlation or co-occurrence of certain topics. And here I have an interesting one. You have two keywords. One is Hellenic Parliament and Old Royal Palace, which is a little bit surprising for those that don't know the British history. But this is a relationship between the Greek origins of the royal family, or part of the royal family at least. And then we can use the same things, like, for example, you can select the Hellenic Parliament, and then you can select the Old Royal Palace, and then see all the videos that are together. So you can better understand this correlation found by tools that can only tell you what the correlation is, but they don't know, they cannot explain you why there is this kind of correlation. And here we have sources that can help you to do that. Another interesting question is how concepts are represented. And then you're starting to play with some of the concepts like immigration, immigrants, and so on. And then you found some visual identity according to the keywords are used. So for example, if you collected external border or internal border, the images are a little bit different. So for internal border, you have a lot of control of people, some nice signs, but everything looks kind of peaceful. But when you look for external border, you have a much more hard images behind. So you have these kind of feelings of refugees. You have, if you go down in the list, you have a lot of boats. because the immigrants in Europe are mainly a major problem coming from Africa across the Mediterranean Sea. So I have a lot of images related to that. So you can see how these images visually can talk about these kind of topics. Another way of exploring these images were possible using, for example, visualization techniques that you probably have seen before in previous presentations we have made. So basically we integrated some of the tools, and one of the tools is tree maps. So tree maps is a hierarchical view that allows to segment clusters of information that are grouped. So here I'm going to present to you first, but then I can show to you in details how you can change the order. So the order is the following way. We make a query using demonstration, protest, and manifestations. Okay, so these are 3 keywords that you are using to cover basically everything. And then you see the distribution of these images by different channels that you have in your data set. So you have much more information in the French channel than in the Italian channel. So you can see the big square here. I don't know if it's very readable, but this big square is Arte, and then you have a France 2 here. And you can see that TF1 is talk, but little less, which is not surprising. But in Italy, they talk even less about these cases, okay? Then when I click on the, on one of these squares, so for example, I clicked on Arte, I go for a next level. So you can see here in this level, I have 172 images, and I go in details in these 172 images, and I try to see how these events, these images are segmented by different events. So you can see that, for example, Brexit is one of the major concerns. The Greek Parliament debt news are also the biggest squares over there, and you have other lesser classification. If I pick one of these squares, I can go for another level, so more detail about, and then you see what are the celebrity and illustrations. So celebrities and illustrations are put in together here because we found out that you don't have much difference between them. You have very few images when you are in this level, and then it would make sense that you put them together. You may have created a different level, but the experts in the field that this kind of detail would be enough. So when you arrive in the 3rd level, then you can have the sequence of images, and of course, I can go, I forgot to put the snapshot here, but I can I can pick one particular image, go to the tags that have been provided, and I can also go to the original data source as well. One of the interesting things that I have created, if you can see on the right here, this is the order that can be, this order can be changed. So I can simply reorder things, say, okay, I wanted to start with illustration and celebrity, and then go to channels, and then go to events, or put in different order, so you can explore the distribution differently. We also have integrated moving. I think that you may remember from the previous presentation by Aline. And this was mainly used for see how topics were related over time. So here I took Brexit, an example. And then, of course, I can select the different channels. So you can see the different colors in the lines in the background represents different channels. I can play around and select it, unselect, and also every bubble represents an image, a stock shot, and then I can analyze this into the details. But what is interesting in terms of a collaboration, so I purposely took Brexit, I can add I can look for what are the other topics that are associated with the Brexit. So sometimes there are too many, then so we have a specific search over there. And then I can put, for example, Angela Merkel and Matteo Renzi in this graph. And then you can see that, for example, I have Brexit on the top, but you have already Angela Merkel. When you put Angela Merkel, which is very present in this data set, when she started to talking about the Brexit. So if you look for the lines here, she is much more early associated with even images of the Brexit than Matteo Renzi, which are quite here. So we can explore these temporal relationships using moving over there and see specifically what are the videos and so on. All the data set can be downloaded. So if researchers wanted to, for example, download the tags, it's possible to download the tags. It's possible to download the imagette or the stock images. We cannot download the videos, and this is one of these strong constraints we have from WINA and all the partners. Is that in order to have access to the full data set, you must be allowed to do that. So we needed to provide the names of people who are having access to this. So this is a little bit tricky. There are some people that they are using for doing research, but you cannot open to everyone the full data set. But for people that are not members of the project, they can still have the classification, the tags provided by CROBORA. So this is free for everyone. The imagettes are free for the stock images are free for everyone, but you don't have access to the indexing or the catalog from the original media. You don't have access to the video to the original media. So these are the mainly constraints. Sometimes when you download, especially when you download the imagettes, is a huge amount of data. So that's why you have this prompt over there saying that it may take a little bit time. We also integrate the RVs. I'm not going to explain much because you have seen that before, but here you have a different association rules that can describe better the how the Hellenic Parliament and the Greek old government are associated and what are the reasons. Of course, you have access to the images and also the original data as usual. So you put a lot of effort into make full traceability of everything. Every time you have an information on CROBORA, you can trace back to the classification, trace back to the origin of the data and so on. So this is the last feature that you put in place in CROBORA, and this is very debatable. I think you'll be killed by overusing the name clustering, but this was the terms that it made sense for our partners from Sic.Lab and for other partners of the project. So they can hopefully understand what is a cluster as a grouping of information, but when I talk about clustering methods from a computer science point of view, is very, very debatable. But anyway, and if you have suggestions for other names, you are very keen to consider that, because you could not find other names for that. So you have two types of clustering methods put in place. One is a kind of a bag of words. And then this was a problem that was basically created because all the data was manually processed. So when you have Italian trainees and French trainees classifying and observing the data, and sometimes they are not using exactly the same words, and then creates a kind of a problem for finding the exactly same video. So we have a reclassification of that and put that as a kind of bag of words. So sometimes when you look for a particular keyword, you can still find the videos that have been classified using other words. Okay, this is the way we could help with that. It's not perfect, but it was enough for solving the problems that we had. The second one, I think that some of you may be interested in the second method that we call a date series. I really don't like this word, but this was proposed by the colleagues to express the fact that we may found a sequence of appearances of images when we treat the data. So this was a work inspired by the work done by Eric Gergosian from University of Lille. So basically, he took the original data set, he put in an engine, and then he provides a classification of the keywords inside of the data. And then he created different clusters inside the cluster. So now we have a kind of a hierarchical ontological view of the topics that only works for this particular data set in this particular period of time. but this describes a certain series of events or series of categories. That's why he called this data series. Okay, and what is data series looks like? So when you put a keyword on the top, so now I'm trying to type Airbus, for example, you can see different type of Airbus in there. So you can find Airbus as events, or you can use Airbus as illustration. These are the two keywords there. But then the third line is, you can see there are icon, a different kind of icon, and this is what you call it a series of events. So if I selected this, the third one, what I'm going to have at the end is all the series or all the clusters that including Airbus in a logical way. So they are not representing hierarchical on the left. This is one ongoing work. We still have to solve that. But this must be understood as an hierarchical view of chunks or grouping of these different images. And the interesting of that is that here I can have all the elements related to the Airbus, but I can also observe them by clusters, because I can pick cluster by cluster there and then see the results. I don't know if you can see the difference, but every time in the left I have orange and gray. Orange are the selected keywords or selected clusters, and the gray are the unselected. So I can play with this around. Okay, so there's still a reminding feature is related to the annotation, the bookmarks. So once you have an account on the CROBORA, which is not open for everyone, as I said, but you can annotate yourself. So every image, every record on the dataset can be manually annotated by people. And then, of course, these annotations and bookmarkings can be used for downloading only the images that are of your interests. So this is what it is. Okay, so it still was an ongoing work. There are a lot of things that you didn't finish, but is already good enough for a presentation, I think. The users of the platform are basically partners from INA and the I know that INA, they have 3 people that are regularly using this platform, and you have other partners on the project that provided the media they can have access, otherwise it's restricted. In terms of future work, what we think is missing is that put the annotations collaboratively, so everybody can see the annotations by others and make sense of that. Helping with the additional data sets, generalizing this as a problem for other type of data sets. Also, one thing that you consider but didn't have done yet is that to use entity names that can help you to explain events. Like, for example, when we talk about Brexit, you could connect it to the Wikipedia page that describes what is the Brexit, for example. And maybe some of the research questions related to AGCI, because so far we are talking about application domains and about the tools. One of the problems that you have is that integration of outsourced data processing. So this data set has been used for a lot of different kind of analysis. They provide us analysis of data. A good example is the graph I mentioned, showing the correlation between Hellenic Parliament and Old Greek Royal Palace, and so on. So we have this information, but how we map back these correlations into the tool to show the users that further analyses are available. This is something that we don't know yet. How to help with the data clustering for helping users to find the information. We have some usability problems to solve. You know that you have a lot of trusts and uncertainty data to be play around. This is an interesting research question that we may discuss if you are interested. And also we have all the foundations for exploring the problem of analytical provenance in data. We'd like to thank you, the many students that work in the preliminary version. So I mentioned this in the beginning about the POR, the projects done by the students. So the first idea, the first design, started with a projet d'étude de recherche, a POR, 2 years ago. And then from that, you got some internships. And when you mature the idea enough, we recruited engineering for the development. So I would like to thank those initial inputs from our students. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you.